see themselves as a victim. And usually that starts when we're younger. We have some sort of trauma that makes us lose faith in the world. If you grow up in a secure, safe environment, you start thinking, well, the world's a safe place. But if you grow up in a world that's not secure or safe or traumatic, you start losing that view of the world that life is safe, things are safe. And what happens when you start looking at the world with that mentality that things aren't safe is that your brain will tell you and help you along in whatever manner you decide. So if you just default to, I'm a victim, this isn't going to work out for me, nothing works for me, blaming others, whatever you're doing, your brain will support that. And it supports that by secreting epinephrine and cortisol, which are the hormones, neuropeptides, and chemicals of stress, which goes into your brain and makes you specifically look for threat. When you are in survival physiology, when you are full of cortisol and epinephrine, you look for threat because you've been told by these neuropeptides and chemicals that you are under threat. You are under threat. So you have to figure out a way out of that threat. Now, often when we were children, there was no way out of that threat. There was no way out. You were a child, if your father was, say, schizophrenic like mine, or an alcoholic or something, or your mother was narcissistic, you didn't get your needs met, all that stuff, you become a powerless victim at that point because children are victims. In a lot of ways, if the parent is acting out or hurting them in some way, consciously or not consciously, errors of commission by doing something bad, or errors of omission by rejecting them, just not being there for them, that creates a tremendous amount of alarm in their system. And then that alarm has to go somewhere. It has to do something. So the alarm basically puts us into a state of survival, puts us into a state of fight or flight, and creates all the hormones and chemicals associated with that, specifically, as I've said, cortisol and adrenaline. So when your brain is on cortisol, this is your brain on drugs, this is when your brain is on cortisol and adrenaline, we don't think clearly. In fact, that's been shown that when our brains go into this hormonal activity of sympathetic fight or flight, we don't think clearly. In fact, we shut off our rational brain and we divert the energy into the emotional survival brain. Now, as you probably know, the emotional survival brain doesn't have a lot of options. You know, it's basically just get the hell out of there and survive. That's basically what it comes down to. So when we're in victim mentality and we're already secreting cortisol and epinephrine, we paralyze the rational parts of our brain. So it works like this. We get into